Okay, Everyday Ordinary. Josh and I already had a podcast before a podcast. We went way deep. Though I was on a podcast a couple of weeks ago. Let me just be honest. The first question was, "What is the Trinity?" That was my first question.
Wow.
I told him that I wasn't ready for that. I told him that the first time that I was asked that question in my family was with my daughter. She was 3 years old in the back seat. She said, "Dad, what is the Trinity?"
Wow.
I tried to explain it, and I watched her brain fall out of her ear. And Mandy asked me why I did that to her. So, Eden, I'm sorry that I've done all those things to you. You know, where
She turned out okay.
She turned out okay. She's great. She's great. Getting married in like 20 some days. Yeah. So, but Josh and I met a little over a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago now. Yeah. Actually, 2 years.
2 years ago.
Yeah, man. Like, wait, what's today? 17th. We got back from Maine in 4 days, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
About a month later, I met you.
Oh, wow.
2 months later. And you were serving a local church. Mm-hmm. And we'd start talking about neighboring. And you were really, really restless, I would say, in one sense of like, how do I take what's inside of me and what I see Jesus being about and bring the church alongside of me in that. Now, you served a local church on a Sunday, but you also have like a home church-ish group thing.
Yeah.
I don't know what we call it anymore.
After Sunday.
Yeah. I stole that name and made a t-shirt.
You did. And I should have trademarked it.
Yeah, you should have trademarked that. I had the websites and everything until I found out that was what it was called. And
doesn't really have a name. EJ. Monday nights after Sunday.
EJ
whatever
did
it is.
I blame him. Made a bunch of drip after that. And so, but I remember just us talking, and there was this deep cry for what does it look like just to follow Jesus in regular ways. And so that began our conversation, and it got pretty deep pretty fast, I would say. You tell me if I'm wrong, but I think you blamed me for leaving your job.
I don't blame you, but
I feel like
he came in and basically told me I was done.
Oh, I don't think it was that clear.
Yeah, it was pretty much like, oh, he's got 2 weeks. We need him here. And I was like, cool. Can I have at least and good. Thank God my wife was there in that meeting because I would have just started right away. She's like, no,
we need like a week.
You need a week or two before. So shout out to my wife. She's amazing. Kendall King. She's awesome.
Kendall King.
She's amazing.
Yeah, we have amazing wives.
Yes.
And they for some way, they have been patient with us in our endeavors, and yes. and our desire to follow Jesus, maybe in ways that others aren't clear on. Mm-hmm. I think we've both been misunderstood in large amounts of ways. You're a crazy liberal. What I've heard is what I've heard about you.
Yeah. Heretic. I've been called all the names.
What am I? I need you to name it.
Man.
You should name it right now.
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I'm not good on the spot with that. I would say maybe abrasive.
Abrasive. So for all you out there, I'm a little teddy bear, and I'm soft and gentle. I can barely grow facial hair. So I look like a little birdie, and I'm gentle, I'm kind,
yes,
and not abrasive at all.
Sure,
yeah. So anyway, we both been misunderstood.
Yes,
I definitely,
sure.
I will agree that I can be pretty tough, and my resting face, a great heart, but I can be sometimes tough and extremely passionate. I've been corrected about that since I was young. Really passionate, sometimes lacking order and clarity. And so I'm not really bashful. It's just about who corrects me all the time. If it's my wife, she gets a number one access door. If it's my kids, they can come in and do it. But I also just got to make sure they understand their spot in this life. And just kidding. And no, but the reality is that we've both been misunderstood in different ways, and good, bad, or indifferent. At the end of the day, we're just trying to know and be close to Jesus and people. Mm-hmm. Would that be agreeable?
Yeah, man. Just, trying to love people where they are and trying to pursue Christ and follow him in the best way that I can. And yeah, just trying, I think, of course the scriptures give a good roadmap, but I think so many times now I'm just trying to figure out like, all right, Lord, like it's very easy to do things on my own. But you've created me to be a certain way. So how do I best love people in this space of how you would love them? Rather if I agree or disagree. So
yeah, I mean, and I watched you fight for people and fight to love people in ways that other people fight for opinions and fight to be right. I think I've seen you clearly fight for the hearts of people and faithfully pursue them in a diverse amount of ways. So I know over the last a little over a year and a half now, we've been serving together at Neighborlink. Mm-hmm. And tell me about some of the things that you love, things that you've experienced, some of the stories along the way.
Yeah. I think just, the awesome opportunities that we get to have here is I said, first of all, little backstory. I was going to just work at a coffee shop because
you look like you could work at a coffee shop. You play that part well.
I was like, man, like, I loved what I got to do. And I loved, the people that we got to serve. But I was just, me and Kendall were feeling like we want to do something different.
Yeah.
And we want to try something else. And we were just meeting people like outside of the spaces like where we were serving. And we're just like, I think that we need to kind of drop the pastor title and just get into some of the muck of things and the weeds of things. And so anyways, then Eric came and screwed all that up.
Sorry about that.
But no, man, I think the biggest thing for me is like, I truly believe like there's equal ground at the foot of the cross. Like everyone's welcome to come there and to lay themselves down at the feet of the King. And at the same time, like we're all there. There's no higher, lower tiers of anything, but specifically just like we're just meeting people there, and we're like, man, it's really hard. It's really hard to do that when people perceive you to be whatever. So, anyways, being here at Neighborlink, like I really try to embody that with pastors or with businesses or with students or with teachers. It's like, man, I just want to invite you into this life of just loving your community and loving the community that we have here in Fort Wayne. Because while it's not perfect, there's a lot of beautiful people here in this community. So, yeah, man, I think I just love the opportunity to invite people into that and make it a space where it's like, hey, this might be scary for you, or this might be different, or it might require some time management, but anyone can serve. And I think Martin Luther King said it really well. Like, you don't have to be, I forgot how the thing goes, but basically anyone can be great because anyone can serve. So, so I think that's just kind of where we are.
Yeah, man, space. I'm sorry I took you out of your new future of being a barista. I mean, that wasn't my goal, and it's to ruin your future plans.
It's gonna be so good.
Yeah, but I remember it's gonna be so good. You just drink espresso all day.
Exactly.
You already drink too much coffee.
I do. I drink way too much.
I'm glad you're drinking water right
yes.
now. But I think that there's this, this burden that you carried, which is why I think when I met you is that there's a burden that you uniquely carried at the time where you're like, man, I just want to love people in the normal, and I want the bride or the church to come with me. And it doesn't seem like many people want to come with me. Now, that's not a specific local church issue. I think that is something that in large part in America, we've lost burden for. When Jesus tells us to love him with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength in Mark 12, and then to follow suit with the follow through is to loving our neighbor as ourselves. We've either moved to the Great Commission, but not filled it with the Great Commandment. As somebody said yesterday, the Great Instruction. We haven't taken the commands of Jesus and actually rightly applied them. Now there's a lot of reasons for that. But I remember you saying, I just want people to come along, and not many people want to come along to do this.
Right.
And I said, man, take the hungry with you. Bring, whether it's a handful or it's several, just take a few.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of times people, when you think about what you're burdened for, what you're into, what Jesus has gifted you for, talented you in, many people are waiting for crowds to show up. But I think one thing we learn over and over again is it's not often going to be crowds. Is to be faithful following Jesus looks oftentimes lonely or in small groups. The noise doesn't necessarily dictate health and fruitfulness.
Yeah.
And in a social media, we joke about millennial and Z all the time. I don't know why you start giggling every single time. Probably because he calls me old head.
He's an old head.
No, you need to stop, bro. But there's a lot of talking out there.
Yeah.
And there's also, you're really good at saying, hey man, but these people in the older generations have been super harmful, super hurtful, haven't been really good listeners. And so there is this tension between the generations that exist. And I think you stand in the middle of that, bringing light to both. And you have compassion for your elder and you have compassion for the youthful ones that are following behind you as you kind of stand right in the middle, being your techie self. And so
I don't know about that, but yeah.
I mean, you help Chris get on the computer. It's a pretty amazing gift you have.
Basic computer things.
Like how to log on. We love you,
I'm sorry, Chris. I love you.
We love you. So, but we do, in the last year and a half or two, we've gotten to see different neighbors served. A lot of them, their stories will never be told. But they have begun to continue, or they have changed us over and over again. And so even getting to labor alongside of you down on the southeast side on Capitol Street and seeing you build relationships with people, and then new relationships that you've built where people are calling you, writing you, inviting you further into their stories. I know our burden collectively is that people would get to enjoy that.
Yeah.
Also, that what we get to enjoy in these homes is pretty ridiculous, and wish that people would follow suit and jump in with us. And so, there's been a lot of beautiful stories and a lot of really fun stuff. It's been hard. It's not always been easy. I think we were hoping for an easier ride, but there were moments that were not so easy. And so I know last year we served Be a Good Neighbor Week together. It was basically our staff. We're just gonna be fully transparent. And 20, 30, 40 more people that served that week. And the news showed up and they're like, this is Be a Good Neighbor Week, the 6th year you've ever done it. Isn't this amazing? And we're like, the first year I did it, there weren't many people. The second year you did it, we did it together and there weren't many people. And so there was this big story about Be a Good Neighbor Week, but it felt like it was really just our staff working double time alongside a few friends.
Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff grinding, and then taking weeks and days off to recuperate. But it's like we started processing that. We talked about different options and came up with Camp Neighborlink, which begins this year, which was really funny because I think I brought the idea to you guys. You guys changed the name. You were afraid that I was going to flip out with the name. Is that?
No.
What actually happened? Because I just remember you guys were afraid.
Well, we're more like, hey, we want to make this fun. And, you're not the first person we think of fun. So
Guys.
Sometimes it's it's like, oh, serious. We're like, well.
Continue on. This is your time to shine.
Okay.
Give them everything that the people want it.
Zach, shout out to Zach, was like, we really want it. He's our videographer. And he's amazing. And so basically him and Robert kind of came up with the idea of like a camp feel. And then they brought me into it and I was like, yeah, man, that sounds great. Like camp's fun. Like, how do you bring in this tension of, because here's the deal for me, like I find great joy. I'll be real with you. Not every time I serve, I have fun. Like sometimes I dread it. Like it's like, this is going to be hard and it's hot or it's really cold or there's a ton of snow or I don't want to go over and reset this person's router for the 3rd time. Like it's
especially when you have to do that for Chris.
Exactly. Yes. But no, I think so many times too, it's like, one, being honest with myself, like I don't always like to serve. And so that's real. Mm-hmm. And then two, it's like, if I feel this way, I know other people feel this way. So, but how do we invite people into this, making the burden light and just inviting you into like this life, what we're doing. So Zach and Robert came up with like Camp Neighborlink. And so they're like, well, I don't know how Eric's going to take it. And I was like, well, let's just throw it out there and see what happens. And he took it. He said it's cool. So then Zach really took the camp theme a little too far.
Dang.
He put me in all these videos that I didn't want to be in. I was kidding. I enjoyed the time.
Shorts and high socks.
Yeah, shorts and high socks. Funny story is I ripped those other shorts I had.
That's great.
Because I had to go, I was biking in them and I ripped them. So anyways, point is, inviting more into a camp feel into it. So it's like, how do you, with the tension of like the heaviness of serving, but also the joy that we get to feel as we serve, because there is a lot of joy that I have serving. You know, it's like, and usually it's after, like it's when you're done. I think even maybe Jesus felt that way, like the joy set before him like, was us, you know, and it was after the cross, like he had to endure that. And I'm not comparing myself to Jesus, but I'm just saying, like, I think so many times, like there is that tension of, you know, you're exhausted, and it was really exhausting last year, but like we want to invite the community into really loving our community in a very, very practical ways. So that's how Camp Neighborlink kind of started, with Zach and Robert, and inviting us into that of like, how do we make this enjoyable? Like, how do we make this fun? So
right here,
where's my phone?
It's your knee. You couldn't see
I
past your
couldn't
knee.
see it past
That's all
my knee.
right. Yeah, I mean, I think that when we talked about it, it was like, what would it look like to be a gathering place for the city that would make it a beautiful reflection of what neighboring looks like in simple ways. And we talked about in a few years that we'd love to see several thousand people hanging out doing that. And it seems like a far cry from the 40 or 50 or 90 people that would come and do Be a Good Neighbor Week. But really, I think we all have this crazy dream for a transformed home or neighborhood or community or city. And further on, I think it's very much reflective of our King, right? He put this crazy dream of the garden inside of us, and then promised that he's going to restore all things, make all things new. And so we have this innate burden to see peace and harmony and beauty with God and each other. And yet my contention is maybe our contention, you can tell me if I'm wrong, it may be not agreeable, but that we're often waiting for priests and politicians and pastors to do work for us that we know is inside of us. And so when we wait for somebody to make a big declaration of what they're going to do, we often lay down our responsibility versus Jesus took up the responsibility of all of our bustedness and brokenness, reconciled us to him and his Father, gave us the Holy Spirit so that we could be this ambassador, these kinds of folks that enter into this new kingdom. And when we wait for other people or we give away our responsibility, it's as if we're saying we don't really care. We don't really want this thing. And so I think we believe that neighboring is a way to fulfill the dream that we all have. And so what if people came around the city once a year for a few days and began to serve together and hung out with together and celebrated together? And what could it do if a city really believed that neighboring was a solution?
Yeah.
Because I don't really know many other solutions.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the hope. I think even just it was me and my buddy, shout out to Josiah. We're talking about this earlier, just about like, you know, we have.
Side note, how many name drops can we have in one podcast?
I'm a name drop a ton.
No, like just go for it. Goal is 50. Somebody keep tabs.
As they keep coming to my brain. I don't know. I think, man, like, so the hope is, or I mean, the eventual thing that will happen. First of all, Christ will be all in all. Like that is the promise that we're given in the end of all things. Christ will be all in all. And second of the things is like Christ tells us that the poor will always be among us. Whether that's poor in spirit, poor in material, whatever, like the poor will always be among us. And I think there's a ton of people who are doing good work in the city. We are a small portion of the good work that is being done in the city. And we're a portion of like the kingdom. And so it's like my dream, my hope is like, and I know this is yours for sure too, is what if neighboring became just a lifestyle,
right?
Where we're just a thing to be referenced as people are just embodying this lifestyle of just neighboring, where it's like, hey man, I know my neighborhood and I know my community and I know the needs that are happening among us. And so I think it's like, that's the great hope and beauty is like, we're sharing this common just love for one another and then able to just serve our community wherever we are. And so I think that Camp Neighborlink, that's the first step. We're inviting people into that. So.
Yeah, man. And I know that there are people that are doing that. I don't want to discount the beautiful ways in which people are responding, since we are one piece or a small piece of the whole. But I think getting people and helping people and encouraging people to envision what it could look like if they knew 5 neighbors around them and they began to learn their needs, and not just their needs as a means to be a fix, but they really began to yoke up with those around them in practical ways that would develop real relationship. I mean, the most beautiful parts of what we get to do for a job and what we're trying to do in our lives. Again, I think we relegate ministry to Sunday, to position and getting salaries, but ministry is our life. We're a fragrant offering to the Lord. We're a living sacrifice unto him. And so the beautiful stuff that we see happening is the platform invites us to meet someone we've never known, maybe from a different context, surely with a different story, but the same blood pumping through their system. And so we get there and a fix or a need becomes an opportunity to become a friend or a neighbor. And then you go further and further in. Not every time. Sometimes people just need something fixed, and that's okay. Jesus did that all the time.
Yeah.
He healed people and moved on. But a lot of times people actually want us to stop and get to know them and hear their story. In fact, a woman just the other day said, she was like, you need to mow my lawn right now. And I was like, yo, chill, chill. Because we were mowing in the area. And I said, here's the deal I'll make with you. If you just sit with me on your porch one time and just tell me your story, I just want to know you for you. Then I would gladly come back here and mow more often. But I really just want to know you instead of just clean your yard. And she didn't want to wait. So she's like, I'm from Mississippi, and here's a story, because she's actually someone that we both know. And
she loves me.
This is a different one. This is a different one. Time out.
Okay.
That wasn't for this. That isn't for this.
That's like, if we're talking about the same person.
Yeah, no.
She loves me.
Yeah,
she
does
me
love you.
Snacks.
She gives me snacks and other. Yeah. So neighboring doesn't always go well.
No. It
so this woman though, who's not the same, she unfortunately had 2 of her kids pass over the winter, one in September and one in December. And she's an elderly woman, and she needs to tell her story. She wants to have someone listen to where she's from and what she's been through. And I think if we're only hearing stories on social media, if we're only reading people's stories from pixels, we often don't really get to know them. And so, I think July 19th through 21st is an introduction into that life. If John Bars, who is the president and co-founder of Neighborlink, often says we shouldn't be needed.
Yeah.
And we're okay not being needed, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to absorb the work of the church or condemn the church or anybody else. We're here to yoke up and enter in it with them. But man, it would be really beautiful. We were needed less if people knew others more, engaged in neighboring at a regular rate, a normal rate. And I think we really, at the end of the day, just want to lift arms.
Yeah. And I think people do too. I think the beautiful thing about our platform is that we give a platform for the people who normally go unnoticed. And I think I know everyone's got all their stuff, busy. You got a family,
right?
You got a ton of things to do, and I understand that. And there's space and grace for that. But I think too, it's just like, I don't know. I Jesus is talking about like, there he was in I don't know where he was. I forget the verse specifically, but like they're like, hey, your mother and your brothers are out here, and he's just like, well, my brothers and sisters are here. Anyone who does the will of God, like,
they're my family.
That's my family. And so I think for me, like I see that too as well as like people who are trying to like figure this out, and life isn't just figured out in 2 days or over a week. It's trying to like embody and trust that the love that God has for us, like we can show that love to other people as well. And so it is sometimes uncomfortable and weird and hard and challenging to figure out like what this looks like. Especially if you've had your own rhythms for 40, 50, 60, 10, 20 years. Like,
that was a weird way to do that.
I know, it really was. I'm not good at math. But it's like you're trying to, there's a lot of patterns I've had to unlearn.
Yeah.
Like, because it's what I've always known. So I'm trying to like, I just like inviting people in and saying like, hey man, there is no condemnation. Right. There's no pressure. But I'm telling you, I tell people all the time, like there is something so beautiful and sweet of just being able to go somewhere, serve someone, and then honestly just see the smile on that person's face. Like, and it's simple things. Like I'm not handy, so
with electronics you are though.
Yeah, with electronics I am.
Yeah, you're great with electronics.
But let's I don't know how to use. I don't know how to use a saw. Like I don't know. Kendall hangs up everything in our house.
I do think that was a question when you became a part of the staff. Was
I said I don't know how to use it.
Yeah, you know that sometimes out of love I bypass what I know about someone, so you don't have to.
Man, I told him I was like I don't know how to use it.
But I think the reality is many people will say I can't do Neighborlink because I can't do this or that.
Yeah.
And so I think you and we are very similar in a lot of ways, that we really want to be with the people and listen to their stories and serve them. And we may not have all the skills.
No.
We'll tie in with other people that have even more skills than us.
Yep.
But we just love connecting people.
Yeah.
So you're not disqualified because you don't know how to use a saw.
Nope.
Otherwise, Josh wouldn't be on staff.
I wouldn't be here. But Jeff does. So
Jeff does. Thank
God for him.
He is our MacGyver. He is like,
yes.
If he had a mullet, it would be great.
I like to imagine with the mullet.
It'd be good. Can we get him a wig? But man, I think I was telling you earlier, I don't think I finished this. We were all over the place before we started, and this young girl that was serving last week, she gets to a house and we're talking to a neighbor, and he's telling us some stories. And I think in the last year, this family's lost 5 family members. I think 3 of them, 2 out of 5 or 3 out of 5 are from gun violence, in very hard situations. Now, I'm not saying that's necessarily gun violence, depending on who you are listening to this right now, as much as there is just violence on the streets anywhere and everywhere, and it's busted and broken, and people are trying to pick themselves off the ground in light of what's going on. And so this man walks away afterwards, and I said, hey, what'd you think about that conversation? And she goes, well, I'm not really good at small talk. I'm really kind of awkward if people just want to like be shallow. And then she goes, I just want to be human with people. Mm-hmm. And I think for my wife and I believe for you and Kendall, one of the best parts of what we do, whether we're at Neighborlink or just in life, is learning how to be human with folk. And I think to hear of someone who had just done their first Neighborlink project saying, I just long for this kind of connection, just human to human, real story, whether it's heavy or super happy, be able to enter into relationships that way. And
your wife's calling you.
How do you know? Hi, Mandy. She's called the first lady on my phone. Is that?
Yes.
Yeah. It used to be the first lady. I don't know how it's now first lady. I'll get to her in a moment. But
I told him to pick up Mandy.
Yeah, no, sure. She'll call again though.
Hey, I get it.
That's great. That's great. She's 2 phone calls and 2 messages right now.
Oh, so in trouble.
Anyway, if you could make kind of one last rally cry, I know that we haven't been uber octane right now. We're not like trying to pump people up. But when you think about neighboring, you think about Camp Neighborlink, you think about the needs of our city, maybe even just what you would say to someone. What are some of the things, just to close up, that you would invite people into?
Man, as much as there's an idea within Christianity, and this is one of our core, if you're not Christian or you're spiritual curious, you don't know this, but like Jesus is fully God and fully man. He's 100% of both. He's not and/or, he is fully God, fully man. And sometimes we can either undersell or not even talk about his humanity. But you see a lot of instances where this is God in the flesh meeting people in spaces and places that you would not expect your deity to be a part of. I think that's what's so compelling about Christianity, even for me, is like this is God. Like people saw the face of God. Like who can say that, And so I think as we're trying to follow our teacher and our Lord and in the ways that he did certain things, the compelling thing for us, whether you're Christian or not, is the humanity behind it. It is the opportunity to meet people in there's some of their most vulnerable state. And it's, for me, it's so humbling to be invited into that space. Because it is, for me, like humbling to I'm trying to think of like the right way to say it, but it's humbling for me, for someone to want me. Like, I think we think, oh, we're doing this great service. But for me, it's more like, no, I'm being blessed by the opportunity to do this for someone. And so I know you have crazy things happening in the summer. I know you've got all this stuff, but I'm telling you, like, it is one of the most rewarding and just soul fulfilling things, being able to be blessed by someone else as we're serving them. So I don't know if that made sense, but this is where I am.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's Monday.
Yes,
it's Monday right now. And so we're trying to continue to wake up to the week. But man, I think that the way you pursue people and the way that you love people, the way you lean into their stories is reflective of a king who's done that for you. And if we can give that away, we may not have all the right answers. In fact, I think we often don't. There is this culturally present reality that people want to have polish and have an answer for everything. Jesus does. We don't. But if we could just come reflective of his grace, his kindness, his love, and give that away as readily as he gives it to us. Like you said earlier, there's a man who thinks he's righteous and he is bragging on his righteousness. And then there's a man who knew he was unrighteous and he pleaded for mercy. And I want to be the man who's just like, God, thank you for your mercy, for your compassion, for your patience, which does inform what we give away.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, if you're listening to this or watching this and you're going, man, like I want to have an answer for everyone. I understand that there's one passage that in Peter speaks to like have an answer for anyone who would give you, some question. And then now you think you just have to be an apologist by that one verse. I can tell you that I spent.
Is that by experience?
I can tell you that, man, I spent the first 5, 6, 7 years of my 20s trying to have the right answer. And I could memorize all the scriptures. My brain is wired to read and memorize really fast. And so before I believed what I was saying, I gave you an answer. Before I knew what I was talking about, I gave you an answer. In fact, as you did say, I was known as a little bit abrasive earlier. I really appreciate your encouragement there. I was known as Dr. Confrontation in my early 20s because, man, I would rip you. And I'm okay. I'm okay with being honest about that because because that's just what it was. Mandy is really good at owning our story, and
she is. Shout out to Mandy. You're amazing.
She is amazing, and she's probably not happy with me right now because I haven't answered any of the phone calls. But the beauty of being married for 21, almost 22 years this year, and being in a relationship with her for 25 years coming up this May is that we have seen our adult life together, and we can be honest about it. And so I spent a lot of early years trying to be right. Now I was still pursuing people in many of the same ways I am today, but I had to be right when I got there. And today I'm not sure I'm always right. And I'm less sure about some of the answers I had 10 years ago. I'm more sure about his forgiveness, about his servanthood, and his love than I was 20 years ago.
And that's what the scriptures calls us to do. It's faith most effective is in love.
So, I would encourage you, I think we would encourage you to jump on, to take a shot. You're going to wonder if people are going to take advantage of you. They are. You're going to say, man, they could have done this themselves.
Probably.
They probably will.
I have a story for that too.
Yeah. But the reality is that Jesus doesn't excuse himself from pursuing us because of those reasons. And it's when we were unable that he pursued us. It's when we covered up with our own righteousness that he pursued us. Even Adam and Eve, the story is covering themselves with their own clothes. He said, "What are you doing, man? You can't cover yourself." And then he sacrifices an animal and covers them. And so, may we in Fort Wayne, Indiana, I found out today we were known as the city of bars and breweries in 1919, around that time. But because that would not attract families into town, they moved to a city of churches around 1919. And it's interesting, for about 102 years, we've been less known now as a city of churches, but that was a marketing plea and plan. And so I just wonder what it would look like if we actually entered into that responsibility and didn't have all the right answers. We held on to the one who does, and we gave away what he gives us. What could happen? And so I enjoy doing that with you. I enjoy watching you do that. I enjoy our team doing that. And I think it's even more beautiful when we see a person try to enter into that, and they have questions and they have doubts, and we see them take a shot in a place that they maybe haven't been before, and then see what happens. And so, July 19th through 21st is great for Camp Neighborlink. We've got some fun t-shirts and food and stuff, and I'm sure some memories to make. And at the same time, today would be a great day to get started in doing what Jesus made us for. And so I think if there's anything that you can take from even this moment is we got two guys who grew up differently, from different church traditions, speak about Jesus oftentimes in different ways. The way we get there at times is different. Whoa, time out, bro. Spit out your water right now. I'm going to slap you with one of those tortillas. I'm not abrasive. What are you talking about? And so...
Did you say one time that me and you...
Whoa, time out.
Hold on.
You said this.
No,
you've said this.
No.
Continue on. We're done.
Oh, we're done?
No, go ahead.
He said one time.
Wait.
He said we're very similar.
You said that to me.
I said no. You said that to me, and I said, in what way?
No. You told me that you are the younger version of me when I met you.
Sure, man. Maybe. I don't know. I could. I
definitely said that.
Probably. I don't know. Maybe. I'll give it to him.
Okay, but continue on.
No, I think that's the beauty of the church is that we are different and we are diverse in our ways of thinking and going about things. But what unifies us is Christ. And under that banner of Christ is love. And so if we really truly love one another, that's how we know that we love God. Like they're interconnected. You can't I can't say I hate you and say I love God at the same time. Like so I think that's also the beautiful thing about us too, because we serve people who are Christian. Like people don't think about that sometimes. Like these people are Christian too as well. And so we get to serve them, which is also a beautiful honor too as well. So I don't think people they're like, oh, I'm looking to go and share.
Evangelize.
Yeah. Where I'm like, wait, no, like these people have been following Jesus longer than I have.
And often have a very robust faith.
Yeah. And I learn more from them sometimes in the way that they've been pursuing Christ and their resilience in that. So that too, I get to serve people who are
brothers and sisters.
Yeah, they're brothers and sisters in the faith. And so.
Well, and I think that's a great reminder to just lay down expectations.
Yep.
Mandy and I, again, have been learning that in parenting. It's changed our lives. I think you have an idea of what your expectation with your kids or of each other, and dying to those expectations actually produce a freedom to love someone.
Yep.
And so the same with neighboring is you have an assumption, I have an assumption. We have generalized ideas of people groups, of where people live and what they're going to be like when they get there or when you get there. Dying to that in a lot of ways leads to a great freedom. You may find a more beautiful, fragrant aroma of Jesus when you get there than you ever knew. And you may find things about culture that you didn't understand, or ethnicity that you didn't know. And I think, bro, the reality is that we come in with a lot of preconceived notions.
Where are we supposed to end this podcast?
I think. Okay. You tripped the trigger, bro. So we're done. For real. Mid-sentence, he cut me off.
I'm just saying.
He's so abrasive. He's so abrasive.
We said we're going to end a while ago.
Bro, I was trying to make this a 30-minute podcast, and we're at like 45 minutes. Anyway, we love you. I love you.
I love you.
Peace.
Patiently waiting for a knock on the door. Someone please tell me, who do we stand for? Overlooking every day and trying